In this film, we offer you to take a look at possibilities many of us dream of, but very few believe are possible. Together we'll see there are truly no boundaries. You might have heard about a certain experiment with fish. If you divide an aquarium with a transparent wall, the fish inside won't be able to swim past it. If the wall were to be removed, the fish will remain on the same side for quite some time despite the barrier being taken away. There are many such experiments. Another one involves fleas contained in a closed jar. When discovering such an obstacle, fleas began to jump at just the height of the lid. They continued to do this even when the lid was removed. In yet another example, when a baby elephant is tied to a peg that he cannot pull out, he gives up trying completely. Even when the elephant grows up, he cannot find the strength to run away. In psychology, such behavior is called learned helplessness. This phenomenon is studied by scientists and is piquing the interest of those who understand that they're living according to old habits and assumptions, even though today's possibilities are far greater. On one hand, we create these boundaries ourselves. On the other, we are faced with constant restrictions from the outside. In any case, it's time to cross the line and open up a new chapter in human history. This is a challenge to the old system. The one you hear repeat every day: cryptocurrency, blockchain, electronic democracy. Stay away from those things. They're dangerous. You don't know what you're dealing with. Preamble. It started a long time ago. We watched movies, read books, discussed theories, and dreamed. We felt that the world could be a better place because we found examples of such improvements everywhere. The steam engine was replaced by gasoline. Then we had electric cars. Messengers gave way to the telegraph. Then we had the telephone. And finally, wireless communication. People learned to pack their experience into books. And so there were libraries. And then, the internet. Humanity made a quantum leap in knowledge. It was everywhere. And only one phenomenon had not changed over several thousand years: the state. Monarchy, democracy, authoritarianism, all of them predate our culture. Among the rest, democracy is considered to be the more humane. But in fact, it's nothing like it appears to be in real life. Democracy arose as a system of self-government in the ancient polis, rarely exceeding a population of 5,000 people. Only a small part of the population, approximately 15%, were considered citizens. An important detail: in those days, democracy was direct, which meant each citizen could come to the city square, propose his own bill, and vote for or against other bills, as well as speak out and try to convince others of his point of view. But in time, democracy became representative. This fundamentally changed everything. Now, we cannot directly express our will when it comes to issues of the state. We delegate members of Parliament and Senate, which officially represent our interests. At least, that's what we've been sold on. But remember, when was the last time someone in Parliament or the Senate voiced your position on taxes, the army, healthcare, or the priorities of your country's development? Instead, we constantly hear of corruption scandals connected with big business lobbying. The concept of democracy remains so on paper, but in essence has become a servant of big business and its apogee, the state. The same thing happened with the Olympic Games. Instead of being an honest competition of body and spirit, it's now a rigged farce put on by the chemical industry, pumping athletes with unknown and undetected dopings. Everyone does it. No one admits it. Those in power justify a representative democracy by explaining that without it, there are no instruments for expressing your civil position. That's a lie. We order products from halfway across the globe, conduct online broadcasts, receive targeted advertisement. There are plenty of technologies. Those in power only want to use it for prohibition and control. The emergence of blockchain drastically changed everything. This technology protects your data and provides a level of freedom previously not available. Faking a paper ballot is much easier than the results of voting via blockchain. But the world has been divided in two: those who see the possibilities of blockchain and its implementation, and those who block pages in Wikipedia and ban the use of cryptocurrencies. Of course, you can't ban blockchain. By now, it's a historical fact, which means that when those in power try to prevent it, they want to retain their control over the people, afraid to hand over control of the state. The state attempts to frighten us, saying we cannot live without it, like parents who don't seem to understand that their children have grown up and are much better integrated into this world than they are. They say we won't be able to feed ourselves or protect our homes from invaders, won't get the proper education and healthcare. But private companies seem to cope with this quite well, and competition has proven to only increase product quality. We are trained to believe that there are areas which cannot function without the state. But think about this. At the start of the century, no one could have imagined that the face of the International Space Program would be changed by a private startup, SpaceX. The same thing is happening in banking. Simple.com began as a simple startup of a few individuals. 10 years later, the service is being used by millions of depositors. The Faraday Technology Corporation allows you to create a car under your own brand, with the help of only a few employees. Thanks to this, you can now start your own automobile brand without any investments. What does this really mean? It means that technology development allows people to independently manage processes that are more and more complex. It means the creation of an alternative form of state, including a decentralized one, is not far off. It's time to go beyond our learned helplessness. Old state. Let's look into the classic example of the state in its general form. Only after sifting through the details can we see the true picture. First, the state means the integrity of its territory. We are used to the fact that this is good because our houses have walls and doors. But does a country need them? Most of our problems don't come from weak borders or external enemies, but from the people who live right next to us. In the 21st century, we realize that our true home is the planet Earth, not a piece of its territory. This means territory is an outdated feature of the state, which today we can do without. Second, the state is a set of rules within a territory. But as we've already figured out, you have no personal say in their approval. You can't influence them. Whether you like them or not, you must obey them, or be punished. Third, money. We are used to it like the elephant is to the peg. But habitual does not mean rational. Here's how it works. The state prints a certain amount of money and it's poured into the economy. To start a business, an entrepreneur takes money from the bank, pledging to return it with interest. But the money supply that needs to be returned, together with the interest, exceeds the amount that actually exists. So the central bank now prints new money so the number of bankruptcies does not exceed a limit dangerous to the economy by inflation. The amount of total money increases, but the amount of work people are ready to do for it remains the same or decreases. So we have inflation. Inflation is, in fact, the speed with which the central bank issues new banknotes. If you give it some thought, it becomes clear that once this process is started, it cannot be stopped. There will be more and more money, while the economy stagnates or even declines. Imagine a formula where money will always get cheaper but never depreciate completely. Not the most promising model, but profitable for those who print money. It's crucial to understand that money, as we know it, is simply a concept, and it's not the only one possible. Blockchain has shown that the financial system can be safely decentralized and transparent, and that money can be deflationary, as with the most famous form of cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin. Its dispersal is limited, which means that its price will only go up. But the state forbids any experiments with finances simply because they're afraid of losing control over money, and therefore over the people. Fourth, the army. Does the state truly need it? Today we are sure that even major conflicts should and could be resolved without any violence between people and the state. There exist other legal, informational, and economic premises that show physical violence is obsolete. We're not calling to abandon and dismantle state-run militaries instantly, but in the long term, we want to live on a planet free of weapons. Fifth, mass media. That entity which mixes news, opinions, and theater in such a way as to shape and control public opinion. One way or another, most of their state-sanctioned views come down to maintaining power rather than reflecting the true values of humanity. Vision. We gave it some thought. If people fly into space, use wireless communication and the internet, what can the new state be like? After all, the old one arose out of a slave system and has remained true to its nature, just took on a modern look. As the German philosopher Goethe once said, "None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free." What do we need from the state today? We want an economic and legal environment in which we will be comfortable to express ourselves and, together with like-minded people, move towards a common goal. We want to transform the world in accordance with eternal values and advanced technologies. We want the state to be a system with an open source code to which every citizen can contribute and program according to their needs. It should be constantly updated and developed, just as software is, combining both stable builds and new, experimental betas. We want to experience a direct democracy and other progressive elements that have become possible thanks to blockchain and other technologies. What does this mean on an everyday level? The state we really need is just a service company where the citizens are its clients, who pay for this or that package of services with their taxes. If the passport of one country gives a visa-free entry to 50-plus countries for a 3% tax, and another only allows 10 countries for a 15% tax, the choice is obvious. And this common-sense metric applies to everything else. We want a set of relevant services that are not imposed on us from above, and a set of laws that we choose for ourselves. Forms of marriage, sexual realization, gender identity, use or abstinence from certain substances, even military service, which some might consider just as a 6-month adventure. We are able to decide what we want ourselves. We are the state. And we thought, what steps can be taken today to get closer to the world we want? A world of greater justice and opportunities. We understood that we already have enough tools for this. All we need is to put them together into a working system. We have a vision of what we want. We have people who are ready. There are technical resources and services. All we need is the software and an economic model. The army? Not necessary. Territory? We believe in an extraterritorial state. We used blockchain as our technological foundation and are now focused on developing the economy. What can it be like? Different, a digital revolution, an alternative to what we see in today's state. We also thought, why not do it the other way? What if the state pays its citizens, not the citizens pay the state? This seemingly crazy idea turned out to be real. That's how Decenturion was born. Model. Imagine that the state is not a parasite, but rather a synergistic organism in symbiosis with people. It seems impossible, as some things are impossible in classical mechanics, but in quantum mechanics, they work. Likewise, blockchain has changed not only the economy, but more global things as well. Blockchains are a zone-free economy, one that's here, now. The current states and those that benefit from the status quo are the last line of resistance, and they'll fall soon. They'll be replaced by new models built on the blockchain. Models like Decenturion. How does it work? To begin with, we embodied Decenturion with the most effective economic model to date that provides citizens with a steady income. Since we uploaded this video, the working model exists and is developing as we speak. It all started with the emission of Decenturion tokens. 3 stages of emission are planned in total, with 10 million tokens distributed in each, with a total of 30 million tokens. Decenturion's tokens are conveniently tied to Ethereum and will be distributed free of charge to those wishing to participate in proportion to their ownership of this cryptocurrency. On one hand, this is dictated by convenience, as the Ethereum blockchain, with its system of smart contracts, is the world's largest technology platform. It allows you to perform operations with Decenturion tokens in the external market in just a few clicks. On the other hand, among the main owners of Ethereum and Bitcoin are key participants in the cryptocurrency market, the so-called evangelists and ideologists of this new world. The distribution of Decenturion tokens among them creates an effective first circle, the foundational stone from which the first blockchain state will be built. Each token is not merely a part of the Decenturion financial system, but a potential civil contract, which after activation becomes a smart contract that constitutes the relationship between a citizen and the Decenturion. It is a passport to a new world. To activate a smart contract, the user transfers one token to the system, where it is then frozen. The other tokens remain on his account. Let's say that at one stage of emission, someone receives 10,000 Decenturion tokens. This means after activating their smart contract, 9,999 active tokens remain on his account. Those who did not receive Decenturion tokens but want to take part can buy them on the lendings of active citizens. Once a user becomes a citizen of Decenturion, they receive their very own personal lending page and a guide on competent economic activity that will lead them to substantial earnings. The possibility of earning is based on the fact that every citizen of Decenturion regularly receives free tokens from all startups that are hosting the Decenturion, proportional to the number of Decenturion tokens that the individual citizen holds. Take, for instance, Mike, who had 10,000 tokens, one in his smart contract plus 9,999 in assets, will now receive 0.033% of the tokens from each startup proceeding to Decenturion. This will amount to 10,000 startup tokens. The citizen will begin receiving such amounts every 2 to 3 days. Instead of merely owning tokens, Mike begins to trade them for any valid cryptocurrency, Bitcoin for example, directly from his page. These trades provide the capitalization for startups and the growth of the value of Decenturion tokens. How is this possible? When it comes to startups, Decenturion provides a unique consumer market opportunity, unparalleled around the world, surpassing all others in terms of efficiency. Usually, classic ICOs bring a startup anywhere from $10 to $20 million, along with several thousand users, while this startup retains a maximum of 10% of its own tokens. When entering Decenturion's market, a startup represented by the system's citizens whose tokens are distributed receive not only millions of users, but also hundreds of thousands of active traders. They also retain 50% of their own tokens at the very least. Initially, the startup receives zero liquid money, but as tokens are sold by decentralized resellers, their price and value rises to a completely different level. The token economy of a startup that has hundreds of thousands, even millions of users, is incomparable to a startup that has gathered merely a couple of thousand of active users. Such an economy easily reaches hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's compare. To get $10 to $15 million by spending a serious advertising budget, time and effort, with several thousand users remaining, a minimal economy, and 10% of your tokens. Or effortlessly, free of charge, and instantaneously get millions of users, creating a token economy of 100 million, at the same time getting up to 50% of all tokens simply by giving up an insignificant primary fee. Isn't it an obvious choice? As for citizens, their status is represented by 3 key parameters based on the number of Decenturion tokens they own. Money. All incoming tokens of startups arriving at Decenturion are distributed without distinction among citizens, according to the amount of Decenturion tokens they own. Power. Every citizen personally decides the tokens of which startups they accept, they put up for sale, and for what price. Glory. Decenturion trades tokens only through citizens' lending, and therefore ranks and promotes them automatically. This means that the most significant residents get into the top 10 or top 100 of a city or worldwide. This provides them with additional benefits. After accepting the startup's tokens, a citizen allows each product to enter the domestic market through their personal lending page and advertises, promotes, and sells the tokens themselves. As a result, dozens and subsequently hundreds of token names will be posted on each active citizen's lending page. This means that everyone developing marketing activity and possibly building a sales department can substantially increase his or her income. Here, we have a completely different emission economy. Even if we take the average token holder, one of the top 10,000 users, over time, their annual income should exceed $1 million. When we first thought about the blockchain state, we were overwhelmed with the many ideas such as smart contracts, wiki constitutions, script-based auto law. But soon, we realized that what we needed was a real platform, an operating economy. It will allow us to create an e-government that embodies everything we believe in, and what makes the blockchain real. In the next stage, we want to develop an environment for forming work groups and introduce additional options for implementing tokens. In the future, we want to create tools for direct democracy that let Decenturion citizens regulate political, economic, and social life online and beyond. We wish to provide any citizen who participates the conditions in which to engage in the projects that inspire them. What are you dreaming of? To work on the code of law? Or to develop relationships with regulators? To develop the symbols of social groups? Or social architecture? The main value of Decenturion is the ability of each person to engage in creative work and express themselves together with like-minded people. We believe that people are the true value of the state. Therefore, loyalty to citizens is not only a pledge of success, but the key to existence of future states, which should become client-oriented and competitive. We can create a unique environment in which resistance to development will be minimal. Today, companies do not need such things as legal entities, bank accounts, and tax reporting. They're just a once compulsory measure, an atavism. In the blockchain, all of this is automatic. People simply don't need to waste their time on it. We create a perfect, self-governing society to demonstrate to the whole world an example of the only effective model of state structure. We create a state for the people in which wealth, power, and glory are completely transferred to all citizens. We create a state where resources are transferred not by residents, but to residents. Citizens are a resource, and this resource is a value that cannot be overestimated. Every citizen is a full-fledged shareholder of the Decenturion state and receives income, the right to vote, and publicity directly proportional to the number of tokens that he has in his possession. Every citizen participates in the management of the state, development of the economy, and ideology. Everyone chooses his role, and this role is determined solely by the interests of the citizen. Decenturion is the state with the maximum density of dollar millionaires, outstanding specialists, and creators per capita. To date, it is not only the best consumer market in the world, but also an advanced human experience in the practice of decentralized interaction. Challenge. The state may not be pleased with the Decenturion, but they won't be able to forbid it. That's because Decenturion does not sell anything to its citizens. All tokens are distributed free of charge. This makes regulators unable to restrict tokens legally. The state as we know it has been a great help to people, but the world has changed, and it is now an outdated model. Today, we can live differently and explore other forms of economics and law, business and creativity, self-expression and relationships. And we try. There's no need to be in conflict with anyone. We invite countries to a dialogue with us. Are they able to function without force, without an informational blockade, simply explaining why their model is more effective and better? Just as we do, a group of enthusiasts. When the Wright brothers tested their first aircraft, they were laughed at. A machine heavier than air cannot rise. And now, the whole world has taken flight. Despite very few people being able to explain where and how the lifting force comes from. We're regular people who glimpsed how we can live easier, richer, more interesting lives. All this is possible today. If you understand the value of this and are ready to join us, we want to welcome you. The more power is consolidated in one hand, the more disharmony there is. Power can be decentralized. The Constitution boils down to several lines of code. There are no borders. There are no conflicts over territory. No arms, no war. We want to awaken the spirit of creation and see what we can do based on our ideas and dreams. And we invite everyone who hears us to take part. To take this journey with us, all you have to do is click.